We're just going to have a quick look at metric units, and I know you've obviously seen these before, and we do use these as part of our everyday life. But let's just look at these in a little bit more detail. So I've just written a few points here for you to note down. Metric units are related by powers of base 10. Okay, it's a decimal system, and that's really the basis of using these metric units of measure, okay, as opposed to other units of measure, for example. So a lot of countries, including obviously Australia and a lot of European countries, use the metric system. Other countries use the imperial system, and there are other systems of measure, of course. Okay, we're just going to focus on the metric system at the moment. It is interesting to look at the conversion between, for example, the metric system and the imperial system, because that is in use, and being able to convert between the two is actually a very interesting thing to look into, but we're not going to do that in this video. Common metric units for length. Okay, so there's a few things here that we're going to look at, so length, mass, time, for example. Common metric units for length include the micrometer. Okay, so that's 1 million micrometers to 1 meter. Okay, that's the conversion. We've got the millimeter. Okay, that's probably the one we're most familiar with, millimeters and centimeters. 1,000 millimeters gives you 1 meter. Okay, that's the conversion. Centimeter, 100 centimeters. Cent. Okay, cent comes from the Roman numeral for 100 is C. So centi means 100 per cent. So there's another 100 there. 100 centimeters to 1 meter. Then we have the meter, which is our standard unit of measure. Then we have kilometers. Okay, so 1,000 meters gives you 1 kilometer. Okay, now let's have a look at some other units of measure. Okay, so for example, for mass, okay, they follow a very similar pattern. Okay, these prefixes, so micro, milli, kilo, are very common, and are used with various things that we measure. Okay, and various aspects of measurement. So we have the microgram, 1 million micrograms to 1 gram. Okay, it's a bit like the micrometer. Okay, 1,000 micrometers gives you 1 meter. 1,000 micrograms gives you 1 gram. We have the milligram, again, 1,000 milligrams to 1 gram. We have the gram. We have the kilogram, of course, so that's 1,000 grams to 1 kilogram. So the word kilo, or the prefix kilo, implies 1,000 of. Okay, so kilo means 1,000 of these grams. So that's 1,000 there. We have a ton. Okay, so this is a unique word to do with mass. Okay, that pertains to mass. 1,000 kilograms to 1 ton. Okay, we have the kiloton. Okay, so that's 1,000 tons to 1 kiloton, 1 kt. So just note the actual units that we use, the abbreviated units. Then we have the megaton. Okay, so that's 1,000 kilotons to a megaton. Okay, and a megaton is also 1 million kilograms as well. So we can convert between all of these. Notice also that when I talk about powers of base 10, all the conversions involve tens, hundreds, thousands. Those kind of numbers, a 1 with some zeros involved. Okay, we have some others there to look at as well. So let's have a look at time. Okay, so common units of time. Okay, we do have the microsecond. I haven't written that in there. There's nanoseconds even. I mean, there's so many, but let's just stick to the more common ones. We've got the millisecond. That's 1,000 milliseconds to 1 second. Okay, we have the second. Okay, so that's a second's a second. We know what a second is. A minute, 60 seconds. Okay, so S is the unit for seconds. Is equal to 1 min, M-I-N. So that's the unit for minutes. 60 of those. Hours, so 60 minutes equals 1 hour. I think it's very useful to note, and I think we've seen this before, that there are 3,600 seconds. Okay, to give you that gives you 1 hour. Okay, that's a very, very useful one to note down, especially when we're talking about the topic of converting, for example, kilometers per hour into meters per second. Okay, and very useful little conversion, that one. We got the hour, obviously 60 minutes gives you 1 hour. The day, okay, 24 hours in 1 day. A week's obviously 7 days. A fortnight's 14 days. A year's 365.25, and so on. Okay, but we'll just stick to the common ones there. Common units for volume, okay, include the cubic centimeter, which is a million cubic centimeters gives you 1 cubic meter. So just imagine a cube that's a meter by a meter by a meter, okay, it's fairly large. A million of these cubic centimeters will fit into 1 cubic meter. And then we have the cubic meter as well. Now, the reason why I put these in there is because when you talk about units of capacity, okay, so capacity is basically how much a container can hold. We measure capacity in things like milliliters, for example, and there's 1,000 milliliters. See the pattern? Milli, okay, millimeter, milligram, okay. There's 1,000 of those to make up one of a larger unit of measure. So 1,000 milliliters gives you it's the same as 1,000 cubic centimeters, which is the same as 1 liter. Okay, very useful, this one. So in other words, 1 milliliter, okay, is really the same as 1 cubic centimeter. Okay. Again, a very useful measure, very useful to note that one. Okay. We got kiloliters, 1,000 liters is actually the same, or has the same capacity as 1 cubic meter. So a cubic meter can hold 1,000 liters, which is the same as 1 KL. It's a lowercase k and a capital L. And that's 1 kiloliter there. We also have megaliters, gigaliters, you know, and so on. And by the time we get past gigaliters, we start to measure the capacity in cubic kilometers and, you know, other sort of crazy units of measure there, but they're far less common unless you're measuring, you know, how much water's in the ocean, for example. Okay, so they are the common units of measure. In the next video, we'll have a look at how we can convert between these units of measure. Okay, and we'll have a look at some tips and some strategies as to how to do that, you know, accurately and hopefully, you know, with minimal error.